Hopefully you had a nice lunch as we move into the really kind of painful and boring part of it. Like it hasn't been like that already. Today, this afternoon, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to talk about batteries, and we're going to talk about power management. When it comes to batteries, this is one of the areas where you really do get what you pay for. Good batteries are really expensive, and they make a big difference. When it comes to batteries, you have to decide, of course, what are you going to run? You're going to run 24 volts, you're going to run 48 volts, you're going to run 60 volts, 72 volts, 96 volts. Most classic division cars are probably running about 48 volts. So you're going to talking about either 4 12-volt batteries or 8 12-volt batteries, depending on the size of the battery in most cases. And then you'll wire them together either in parallel or in series to add up the voltage. One of the things that you need to think about is whether your car can carry a full battery pack. I think the rule is 5 kilowatt hours of battery. 5 kilowatt hours is about 250 pounds of battery. That's a lot of weight. And if you're driving down the road and those batteries aren't charged, then of course it's just dead weight. You have to ask yourself, can your solar panel, this wonderful thing that we talked about this morning, actually recharge your batteries? It doesn't make any sense to have batteries, this huge battery pack, if you can't recharge it. Otherwise, every day that goes by, you lose more and more energy. Your car gets heavier and heavier and heavier, basically, without usable energy from it. When you talk about the 5 kilowatt hour rule, the math is actually pretty easy. The kilowatt hour is just amp hours times voltage. So I have an example there. You use what they call the 20-hour discharge rate. Batteries have a certain rated capacity based on the time it takes to use it. If you use your battery quickly, if you use it in an hour, all right, it's going to have a lower capacity than if you spread the use out over 20 hours. So the rule for the contest is that we use the 20-hour discharge rate for the math. So 4 12-volt, 84 amp hour batteries would be about 4,000 watt hours or 4 kilowatt hours battery. And like I said, that would weigh, in this case, would be about 230 pounds. I think some cars go all the way to 5 kilowatt hours. Keith, how much do you know in your car? Are you right at the?
We are way under. I don't know specifically what we are, but I'm trying to think actually what batteries you can calculate it real quick. Our array, as I said earlier, is only 12% efficient, so yeah. We've got a relatively small battery bank because I can't recharge it anyway.
We're running a full 5 kilowatt, or right at 4.9 with the lithium ion.
Yeah, with lithium, it's a lot easier to get to that, but obviously that would put you in the advanced.
That's about 100 pound battery.
Yeah, it is amazing.
That's a totally different subject when
Yeah.
you go from lead acid to any of the exotic batteries.
Right. When you look at batteries, you choose a battery for a couple of things. The one thing that I always try to look at when I choose a battery is what that Pukert number is. It's kind of a funny name. The closer its Pukert number is to 1, the more energy you will get out of the battery in a solar car. And in most cases, the more energy you can get back into the car from your solar array. So I have 3 examples here. So let's take the rate that you discharge it. Now, a typical solar car, maybe running 48 volts, maybe at the track, is probably somewhere right in here as far as the number of amps you're using as you drive along. I mean maybe 15 amps or so, depending on how much your car weighs and how much resistance it has. You can look here, if you run your car at 15 amps, what the capacity in amp hours would be. So you can see here, this has much less capacity than this. The ones, that 1.1 Pukert number up here, similar batteries, different Pukert numbers, mean that you are getting more energy as you drive that car along. Now, what makes a difference? Battery chemistry almost always is what decides its Pukert number. A good lead acid battery typically has silver contacts in it. It typically doesn't give off as much energy to heat as you charge it, and it doesn't give off as much energy to heat as you discharge it, which is really what lowers the Pukert number. Something like a lithium-ion battery pack has a Pukert number very close to 1, which means that the battery pack doesn't care if I run it really hard at 30 amps or I drive along at 5 amps. That doesn't matter much at all. Cheap batteries have very high Pukert numbers, but they don't tell you that. So let's say you go to a regular battery store. You say, I want the cheapest 12-volt battery that you have. That battery might work great for starting your car, where you are constantly charging it every day, all right? But for your solar car, it's not going to work. In fact, what it's going to do is it's going to drain very quickly. It's going to give off a lot of energy to heat, and then when you try to put energy back into it, almost, well, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of that energy that you're trying to put in your battery is actually just warming up the battery because of internal resistance. Whenever we get batteries, we test them. And there's lots of ways to do it. This is a picture of my students with our really cheesy battery testing station. What we did was we just took a lot of light fixtures here and 12-volt camper lights, the kinds that you would use in an RV. And we would screw them in or unscrew them based on how much current we wanted to take out of the battery. So we would say 15 amps or so. And then, so we'd screw them in, screw them out. We had a little meter there set up so we could monitor them. And we would have students, typically freshmen, sit there, and every 5 minutes they would record what the battery's voltage was and at what rate we were taking energy out of the battery in amps. And so when we got all done, we do this for every single battery we had. And then we'd charge them all back up, and then we'd do it again. And then we'd charge them all back up and do it all again. And then we could go back later on and then look at these graphs where we said, all right, how long did it take for that battery to be dead, right? If we have 5 or 6 batteries, we might choose the 4 best batteries out of it. I'll tell you that even manufactured by the same company, if you buy 5 batteries, you're pretty confident you're going to get one in there that's a dog. And just like solar cells, your battery pack is only as good as the worst battery in your pack. So if you have one battery in there that's not good, it's like trying to put 3 new batteries in your calculator and have an old battery in there. It's just not going to work. They're going to go dead very, very quickly. So we try to keep track of all those things so we can test them. And sometimes it's not always, you can't buy 5 $300 batteries because you don't have that in your budget. But at least you can go in and try to buy fresh batteries, ones that are you can check the manufacturing date on it, and that makes a difference. You test batteries, don't you, Keith?
We not only test them, but you cycle them.
Yes.
And what you've got set up is more friendly towards cycling. We actually test ours with inductive reactance. That's purely resistive, but it will do what you're talking about.
So you have a device that actually, you hook the battery up to it? Yeah.
It's actually running a motor, and we're
Yeah.
putting a load on it, and we're varying that load just like hills and things
Yeah.
would do. This is totally resistive that you're connecting to that battery.
Yep.
And another thing that's a little bit different is that amp hour. Everything in the race is geared to the 20 amp hour rate.
Yeah.
But reality is you're discharging this battery in 6 amp hours and not 20 amp
Right.
hours. From a race strategy standpoint, that 20 amp hour
It's useless.
is useless.
Yeah.
Totally useless.
Yeah.
You need to go to that battery at the 4 to 6 amp hour rate to that much higher. And that 15 amps is probably not realistic for most cars in this
Right.
race
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, not at 48 volts, I think.
No,
So, yeah, I
it's
think
not.
you're right.
You need to look at those higher amperages to be more realistic of what you've got.
All right, let me show you some of my favorites. I have to laugh when I put this in. I didn't know it was going to do that. Obviously, I put the picture in with some HTML code or something. Causes it to do that. These are a couple of batteries that we've had really good luck with. That Concord Sun Extender series, you can order them from a number of different places. I really like those batteries. They have very, very low internal resistance. So when you charge them up, very little energy gets lost to heat. Almost all of it goes back into charging the battery. The downside is that they're expensive. So for us, if you had 4 84 amp hour batteries, 4 big batteries, they're $250 each, maybe even more than that by the time you get them shipped to you. The other batteries that I like, this Enersys Odyssey Marine series. There's some, they make a Genesis series that I really like. Obviously, the cost is going to be one of those things that you have to look at. Lee, have you used a whole bunch of these?
We use the Concords, but lately we're using the red top Optima battery because it's very little energy in and out, big surface on the circular cells, and we use the red top, which is a regular starting battery, rather than the yellow top, which is a deep cycle, because the deep cycle is just larger lead plates, so therefore more weight to carry around. But they last a lot longer, so
Right.
we don't care how long they last.
Yeah.
You're seeing a lot of them move to that, actually.
How long do you guys use batteries? Do you keep batteries?
I use them the entire year, but we put a new, we want them to last 1 week
Yeah.
or one race, and that's another thing that we've went to the battery manufacturer, and despite what battery you use, you need to find its max minimum. You know, you can put them 16, 18 volts on these batteries.
Yeah.
And people kind of cringe when you do that, but you're not wanting it to last 5 years. You're wanting it to last 4 days.
And
And that's where we turn our trackers up to.
And I'll tell you, on that very last day of the event, you are torturing your batteries. You are doing damage to those batteries that cannot be repaired. A typical lead acid battery is full at around 14 volts, maybe about 13.6 volts, right? It is essentially dead once it gets under 12 volts, which is kind of funny. We call them 12 volt batteries. Once you get under 12 volts, there's not a whole lot of energy left in that battery pack. And you would see it as you take energy out of it. You're like, oh, this is all good, it's all good, it's all steady and steady and steady. And then when you get down to about 12.5 volts, it just, boom, tapers off, and then you have no energy left. And it happens very, very quickly.
Batteries are not linear, and you need to
No.
research that and understand that
Yeah.
fully.
Yeah. And you can find the energy curves for a lot of batteries.
Wouldn't you agree this is one of the areas that's least understood and least paid attention to by teams?
Oh yeah, because it's one of those things where the cost makes a difference. You go into a battery store and you say, I would like a deep cycle battery because we're going to put them in a solar car. Well, you could pay $40 for a deep cycle battery, and put it in there. It's not going to give you. You'll be disappointed, I think, in the performance. So.
Another thing, most of these batteries are the glass mat, fiberglass mat
Mhm.
in there. A lot of people don't understand, it says fiberglass mat, that's not lead acid, but it is, that's just the medium that holds the acid around the lead.
Yeah, that absorbed glass mat. So they have to be sealed absorbed glass mat batteries, right? Is that right? I know they have to be sealed, but do they have to be AGMs? Is that?
No, it could be gel cell, anything besides a liquid.
They can't. Yeah, they can't be wet cells, right? Regular. They can't be.
Anything but wet.
No flooded. That's right. That's the word for that. Do you have any questions about batteries? buy one and test it.
The
And see.
red tops that Lee's talking about is right there with those, and that Hawker battery, if someone's already got his,
Yeah.
incredibly good battery.
Yeah, I think that Hawker battery is now made by Enersys, I think.
Is that-
Yeah, I think they bought that company.
One of the
They
things
have smaller
colleges have
size
learned to
batteries
do
too,
is
the
to
Hawker Genesis batteries. You can get some online.
colleges have learned to supercharge their batteries. The rules now this year say that you can't supercharge your batteries, and that we'll be checking to see that you don't supercharge your batteries. What do I mean? We bought our set of Ultima Red Top from University of Kansas solar car team. I went up there and I was trying to get in the door and said, no, you can't go in. And they had these blast shields set up in the room. And I said, what are you doing? He said, we're supercharging our batteries. They had the batteries. I said, well, how long do you let them go? And he said, until the brownish red stuff oozes out of the batteries.
You know, I think Bob Franz will tell you about this from Electrothon. I remember when we did Electrothon, this is a race where it's just electric, and you have basically two car batteries that run the car. I remember bringing these car batteries into my hotel room at night and putting them on a waterbed heater, plugging it in, and then charging them all night until they were so hot that I could barely pick them up. And then we'd put them in a cooler to keep them hot, and then take them to the race because you could get more energy out of them. So, yeah. So, and not looking back and thinking,
Electrothon still allows you to do that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm keen on that. So I just think it's bad.
It's a lot safer now. In the old days, it was heating up flooded cells.
Flooded cells, and they would be leaking out the top.
You know, the guys
So-
would change the specific gravity, the electrolyte,
Yeah.
and all. You know, so you have a kid sitting there with a bomb.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary.
Dr. Marks has been trying to tell you this. That's why he sent you through Parker, Arizona.
Some part to warm them up, get just a little bit extra.
Should have more energy than that.
Find out.
He knew this all the time.
Okay, any other questions about batteries?
Can I take this moment to
Yeah.
introduce someone?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
During the course of an event, the most important person at that event is the gentleman who's going to take care of you if you're injured, if you're going through heat exhaustion, if there's a problem in regards to any kind of physical transportation issues. He's our security man. He's the person who's our EMT. And his name's Fred Varian. I've asked Fred to come by. Fred, would you stand up and wave your hat or something so we can recognize you? This guy, you want to know, he's there to help you. And I appreciate you listening to him. Do you have any words of advice for the people who've never participated in the solar race?
Never participate in the solar race, drink water, wear a big hat. You're playing with Sol, the sun. Sol always wins. Trust me. My bet with all the teams at the race, and I'll say it now, somebody is going to kiss the paper. Don't let it be you. And in all the races we've done, I did not lose that bet 1 year, I'm told. I think Keith Reese can tell me, I'm sure, that 1 year so far, since I've been doing this since '97, somebody, at least one person, hasn't kissed the paper. If you're not going to the restroom and you're not peeing, you're not drinking enough. Trust me.
Did you say it was 137 on the pavement out at the
Texas
Speedway?
Motor Speedway, under your canopy, we will measure the temperature at over 130 degrees, concrete temperature. At the start-finish line, it'll be over 150. I will say that every once in a while, just to keep you engaged with the fact that it's hot. And there's no way you can do it. I guarantee after a couple of days out there, everybody will be dehydrated, me included. And I drink water constantly. I've been sick from it before. It's easy to get it again. It's a lot of fun to be out there, but trust me when I say, Sol always wins. I challenge all the captains, and I'll say this at the meeting when we check in here at the hotel. You know your team partners better than I do. What I think is an odd way that you're acting may be perfectly normal for that person. So you guys know yourselves better than I know you. If your team captain sees you acting funny, they need to bring you to me and talk to me. Don't ever be embarrassed about it. If you think your team captain's acting funny, you need to have the advisor bring the team captain over so he doesn't feel he's being picked on. The same way with your advisors. Every advisor that's done a race out here will tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you've got to drink water. And I say water, there are some sports drinks I've seen on the tables around here. They have caffeine in them, so it's Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, pick something. Caffeine, iced tea, that's a diuretic. You will lose more liquid than you gain from that. So during the day, drink water or a sports drink. Like Gatorade, Powerade type of sports drinks.
Fred, thank you very much.
Y'all have fun. Good luck
Appreciate
at the conference.
So Carter, now you know what you have to do to protect your team. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
We're going to move forward into power management, and hopefully we can get this done before we go out and look at a solar car, if that's okay. What it all comes down to is how much power do you need to get your car to go down the road. So you're going to get your solar car there. Let's assume that you've built it. Let's assume that you've picked batteries and solar panels, that they're all connected and they work, that somehow your car stops, somehow it's reliable, somehow you have managed to get all the wiring in there so that when something stops working, you can figure it out. What it all comes down to is these last four ideas. The amount of energy you use, all right? These are the big four as far as what is going to reduce your efficiency of the car. The aerodynamic drag, the rolling friction, the weight of the car, and then electrical system resistance that we talked a little bit about earlier. These numbers match our car. I'm not sure it would match every car, but I think it's in the ballpark. A typical solar car array, 800 watts. Maybe a little bit less than that depending on how efficient your cells are. During a race day, there are about 12 hours of usable sunlight. And that's not saying that there's good sunlight for 12 hours. Really, you have maybe 4 or 5 hours of quality sun. Sometime between 10 and 2 or so in the afternoon. After that, the numbers come down relatively quickly. You'll see all of the cars at the end of the day at 5 o'clock. You have to stop. No matter where you are, and then we have to get it to the impound at the end. But that's where all the solar arrays suddenly start to flip up and try to face right into the sun, trying to scavenge as much available energy as they can before you put your car away at 9 o'clock at night. One of the reasons why I always liked being at Texas Motor Speedway is that even though you could leave your car out until 9, the shadow fell over the solar cars from the stadium at about 7:30, and then you could be done. For the day, so I always kind of like that. If you look at some numbers, assuming that you have clear skies, assuming that your panel works, that it's not covered with a bunch of fingerprints, or any of the cells are broken, and your power trackers are all working, you could, I suppose, get about 9,600 watt hours of energy per day. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you are putting 9,600 watt hours of energy back into your battery pack. Unfortunately, some of that energy gets lost in electrical resistance through the wires, and some of that energy just plain gets lost in the form of heat to charge your battery. So just internal resistance inside the battery. One of the things that you can do to kind of help yourself, and you'll see this with a lot of teams, we bring along little misters, like sprayers, water sprayers that you would use in a garden or in a greenhouse to help cool your array. As solar cells get really, really hot, their efficiency goes down, and they can go down significantly. And so you'll see teams out there watering their solar array to hopefully use evaporative effect to cool it down. In Parker, Arizona, we used it to spray the side of the car because it was so hot that the driver couldn't get into it. So, a full-size, fully charged battery pack we just talked about 4,000 watt hours of energy, and you need about 5,000 watt hours in order to fully charge it up, assuming that about 20% of it is lost along the way. So you can see that it's not easy to get all of that energy from the sun to make your car go. Even though you might start with a full battery at the very beginning of the race, over the course of days and days and days, at some point you're hoping just to kind of get close to full before you put it away at the end of the day, and then try to save some for the next day. As I mentioned earlier, even a 48 volt battery pack, it is dead at 42 volts. I mean, you're on the side of the road at 42 volts, waiting for the charge to come up. Obviously, there's lots of things that affect your array's efficiency, things that you can't control. You can't control the shadows when you drive through a rural downtown Texas little hill country area. You can't control the clouds in the sky. You can't control rain. We stop arrays for rain. That's right. And this is actually more irritating than you would think, because you bring into this town this really cool car. Little kids want to touch it. Absolutely want to touch it. They are mesmerized by it and spill things on it and stuff. So usually what you do is you keep a couple of students whose only job is to, in a really nice way, show them other parts of your car, so they're not touching the arrays on it. And at the race, there are set times where it's mandatory that you stop. Those media appearances are really important to the event. Doc, you want to talk about that for this next race? Do you have some stops like that?
Oh, we do that. I'll talk about that tomorrow when we talk about how the race is formatted. But Matt's got a wonderful story about that. We were in Fredericksburg trying to show off our car. Remember the kid?
Oh, Superman? Ah, yes. Okay, so he brings up a great point in that you're going to be traveling all over. I mean, depending on the year, let's say this year we'll be going to Austin. So you're going to be traveling all the way down to Austin. There's going to be tons of people along the way that want to see your car. They really enjoy talking to you about it. They want to touch it. Adults, you can kind of convince not to touch the car because we've required you to put high voltage all over the car. But we were in Fredericksburg, and there was this child, and I do actually believe he was wearing a Superman outfit. It could have been the years passing, and that's just how I remember it now. But he just runs up and jumps, and he's now over the array. And fortunately, one of us catches him, sets him down. But I mean, that array actually wasn't very well insulated, so that actually would have not only been bad for us, but probably bad for the child. But I guess the moral of the story is you just want to really. It's not a bad idea to fence it off, really have people standing out, because depending on your car, some of them are pretty durable, especially the more entry-level vehicles that are using pre-built arrays. But if you have custom-built arrays, if you have even for example what Reese was showing you, it's just better not to let anyone touch the vehicle unless you
And not even judges. Don't let a judge touch your car without your permission. I remember one of our judges counting arrays by going to the top of the car and going 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't do that. You tackle the judge. You throw him to the ground. That's important. Only time I came close to killing a solar kid was we were on the tour.
the only time.
We'll find out in the memoir.
At least 12 times.
The closest time.
One of the early ones, it was when I met Lee, was that we were trying to get into the Tour de Sol, and this judge came over and took after our car with a screwdriver. And he was going in there and poking underneath the car, was prying things apart. One of our students went over there and literally had the judge by his neck, dragging the judge away. That could have been why he never got in the race. Could have been. But your car is your car, and people should ask for permission to touch it. Be careful, they'll want to touch it. It'll be that neat, right?
And the judges should not be asking to touch your vehicle, really. It's better that we don't. For example, for some reason, every year someone shows up with their car grounded, which makes me really afraid to touch any solar car. Until I figured out that it's not grounded.
I'll tell you, the people that you meet along the way at solar car races really does make you feel good about what you've done. They are interested in what you do. They admire your car. They will say super nice things about it. Little kids are fascinated by what you've done. They think that you are rock stars. When you pull into these little towns and people are waiting for you, and little kids are standing there and they're like, they can't believe how cool you are. And it really is kind of a neat thing. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more fun Keith's cars, especially his Sun Racer car, is very durable. But I've seen him at the end of the day cycle little kids in and out of that car, where they can come and sit in it. They're sitting in a solar car. That's the kind of stuff that you talk about forever when you're a little kid. So it's kind of.
Speaking about Keith's car, we were in Indiana, and we were in a large parking lot in this small city, and your car drove in, your driver got out, and there must have been a couple hundred kids just swarmed the car. And I went over and I asked one of the little kids, I said, why are you doing this? Because it was like if you were the guy, they wanted to touch him, like it was E.T. coming here. And the little kid turned around to me, he's an astronaut. That's what they're thinking.
That is so cool.
So it's a special thing. Your drivers will have some special attention.
When people ask why the Houston team does so well year in and year out, this is why right here. Is that they know exactly how much energy their car uses. All right, they know exactly when those batteries are going to go dead, and the only way you really find that out, I mean, you can do lots of calculations, you can do a lot of guesswork, but when it comes down to actually knowing how much energy your car uses, the only way to know for sure is to take it out and drive it a lot. The Houston team does a great job at getting the car done early and then making careful measurements as they drive along. So all of those students already know all of the key things to watch for during the race. They've practiced how to deal with that car. I can't even tell you how important that is to success at this event.
But more importantly, to our success, and I think if anybody that's been here, it has never been the lightest car here.
No.
Never. People get, it's like this, and that's super, super light. But the lightest cars very seldom win races, even in Australia. You do the history and research, there's a line, and when you cross that line, you forget it.
Yeah. Well,
Nothing
one
you're
of
going to do is going to solve that.
Yeah. One of the things that we'll talk about later on is where money actually helps. All right, making your car significantly lighter doesn't help as much as making your car more aerodynamic, along the way, and we'll see that.